Please download your DOM challenges from the Canvas and then go ahead and open your index file in code. Now, this is familiar. We went over, at least second block, we went over challenges 1, 2, and 3 together before spring break. However, these challenges are very similar to challenges that you will have on your project portion of your test. So you probably just want to go back over these and make sure that you can complete these tasks and you know what we're doing. Okay, once you have this open in code, let's scroll all the way down to our script section. Our first challenge was to when the user enters text in this text box. So when they put something here and we click to change text, whatever they typed here then becomes the text of the button. So since we know a little bit about the document object model, we know that as long as we can access any of these objects in our HTML, we can change them and manipulate them. Okay, so let's go back to our script section and see what we need to do. We will need a global variable to reference our buttons for the challenges in 1, 3, 5, and 6. I've already given you that information. And then I've already created your functions here for each challenge. So the function change button is for challenge 1. All right, let's go ahead and create a global variable that will reference this button. And if we scroll all the way up here in our H1 section, H2 section here, are we up for the challenge? We have an input button with the ID button, okay? So the most obvious way for us to access or get to this element is use getElementById. So all the way down in our script section, let's do var and let's call this text button. If you hear cats crying, sorry, they want to go outside and it's raining. There they go. So we're going to do a document.getElementById, and the name of the ID was ID button. Okay, so we'll use that again in our event listener. Now, and also in this function. Now, we need a way to access what the user types in this text box. So we have to get to that text box in some form or fashion. This is an object that we can address. It is in our DOM tree, so we just need to know some information about what that looks like in our HTML. If we go to our HTML, we see that we have an ID called ID text. Well, we know automatically if we have an ID, one of the easiest ways to get to it is with getElementById. So let's scroll on down to our code section, and in our function change button, we are going to create a variable called userText and use document.getElementById, and the ID that we are addressing is ID text. Now, you could do this a couple of different ways. I'm just going to do it this way right now, but you could go ahead and get the value from that text box. Remember, it's not just enough to get to the text box. If we want to get what's inside the text box, what the user typed, we also have to get the value. Well, we have a variable that addresses our text box. We have a variable that addresses our button, so we're almost finished. All we need to do is take what the user typed and change the button's text. Now, if we scroll back up here in our HTML and we look at our button element, what is it that makes the button, what attribute of this element makes the button's text? It is the value. So as long as we can get to this element and then address the value attribute, we can change whatever is inside here. So let's do that. We're just going to take our text button.value and set it equal to our user text.value. And that's it. If we refresh, oh no, that's not it. Event listeners. I always forget the event listeners. Let's scroll down here towards the bottom. I have a comment for add event listeners here. We want 1 to execute on a click event. This is challenge 1. So to execute on a click event, it has to be an object being clicked somewhere. The object is what we referenced here in this line of code, we created a variable called text button. So as long as we can get to text button, we can say add an event listener, and when that button is clicked, then let's execute the, what was it called? Change button. Let's execute the change button function. Okay. Now we should be cooking with bacon. So let's go back over here, refresh our page. I'm going to enter in Iggy because he's the one that's crying right now, and notice my button text changed. Okay, so I'm going to post all of these challenges in separate videos so that you can rewatch them, pause them at any time, and review the content that you may have missed. Okay, all right, so on to challenge 2.